She is conscious of the high things not yet won. She is aware of those things. And she is nursing in her sleepless breast an inward urge, not an outward. She doesn't want to see the outer things. And therefore, she is ignorant and she is weary, and yet she is invincible. She seeks through the soul's war and quivering pain. Well, the soul has to go through a lot in this life of ignorance. It has to face death. It has to face wars. It has to face evil. It has to face illness. So many things. She seeks through the soul's war and quivering pain, trembling pain, the pure perfection her marred nature needs. When we rise into the higher planes of consciousness, there is no sin, there is no evil. Everything is seen in a different way, a way that we cannot quite express in our nature or through our mind. What is this marred nature? Well, it's a damaged nature. Poetically, it means impaired or spoiled. So, the pure perfection she's looking for, that her marred nature needs. A breath of Godhead on her stone and mire. Well, Sri Aurobindo tells us that the divine is in the stone and mire. If the divine is truly divine, he's everywhere. He's in everything. He's even in the darker things, something that Western mind cannot grasp, that the divine could be negative, that he could be evil if he wanted. Pardon? Well, he is everything. How can you leave out evil? Yes, he can be negative.
But not without reason.
Your sense of reason, not the divine sense. He wants to explore himself in everything, in every aspect, in every atom.
Then he's not divine.
Ah, that's the Western mind, yes. That's the Western mind. The Indian mind knows differently, ma'am. Okay. A breath of Godhead on her stone and mire. A faith she craves that can survive defeat. The sweetness of a love that knows not death. The radiance of a truth forever sure. A light grows in her. She assumes a voice. She takes on, she adopts a voice. Her state she learns to read, and the act she has done. But the one needed truth eludes her grasp, avoids her grasp. Herself, and all of which she is the sign. That's the one needed truth that is still eluding her grasp. Herself, and all of which she is the sign. An inarticulate whisper drives her steps, of which she feels the force, but not the sense. Because she is in the ignorance still. She hasn't broken out of the ignorance as yet. She will. And this is the reason that Mother and Sri Aurobindo took birth in a human form. Because it was the moment when the earth was calling for a leap in the evolution. And that leap has come. Sri Aurobindo brought the supermind into the earth by giving up his body. But 23 years after that, Mother worked on the transformation of the cells of the body. And she told us that anyone who was ready for that tremendous leap into the bodily transformation, those cells would come to them also. She had done the work. Mother had done all the work. Now we're back to the earth goddess, and we see a few rare intimations come as guides. Immense divining flashes cleave her brain. And sometimes, in her hours of dream and muse, the truth that she has missed looks out on her, as if far off, and yet within her soul. A change comes near that flees from her surmise, and ever postponed, compels attempt and hope, yet seems too great for mortal hope to dare. Do we aspire to belong to the divine with our mind, our body, our life force, vital nature? Ask yourself. A vision meets her of supernal powers. Supernal here means heavenly powers. So this vision meets her of supernal powers that draw her as if mighty kinsmen lost, approaching with estranged, great, luminous gaze. Kinsmen, of course, relatives, peers, estranged is almost an alienated feeling. But it's a great luminous gaze. Then is she moved to all that she is not, and stretches arms to what was never hers, outstretching arms to the unconscious void. And here we have our first definition from Sri Aurobindo in The Life Divine. He writes, "The Absolute cannot indeed be bound in its nature to manifest a cosmos of relations. But neither can it be bound not to manifest any cosmos. It is not itself a sheer emptiness, for a vacant absolute is no absolute. Our conception of a void or zero is only a conceptual sign of our mental inability to know or grasp it. It bears in itself some ineffable essentiality of all that is and all that can be. And since it holds in itself this essentiality and this possibility, it must also hold in itself, in some way of its absoluteness, either the permanent truth or the inherent, even if latent, realizable actuality of all that is fundamental to our or the world's existence. Passionate, she prays to invisible forms of gods, soliciting from dumb fate and toiling time, requesting from dumb fate. Dumb in Sri Aurobindo's terminology is always silent or quiet. It is never pejorative. What most she needs, what most exceeds her scope. And now we find out what the earth goddess wants, what the divine creatrix wants in this world of forms. A mind unvisited by illusion's gleams. A will expressive of soul's deity. A strength not forced to stumble by its speed. Now, before we go to the next page, I want to read a couple of things, because we see that Sri Aurobindo, when he uses a capital, he means the essence of something. And so the first thing is the mind. A mind unvisited by illusion's gleams. Well, in a letter on yoga to a disciple, he writes, "The mind, in the ordinary use of the word, covers indiscriminately the whole consciousness. For man is a mental being and mentalizes everything. But in the language of this yoga, the words mind and mental are used to connote specially the part of the nature that has to do with cognition and intelligence, with ideas, with mental or thought perceptions, the reactions of thought to things, with the truly mental movements and formations, mental vision and will that are part of his intelligence." And in the Life Divine, he tells us, mind in its essence is a consciousness which measures, cuts out forms of things from the indivisible whole, and contains them as if each were a separate integer. Mind is an instrument of analysis and synthesis, but not of essential knowledge. Its function is to cut out something vaguely from the unknown thing in itself, and call this measurement or delimitation of it the whole, and again to analyze the whole into its parts, which it regards as separate mental objects. The difference between the ordinary mind and the intuitive is that the former, seeking in the darkness, or at most by its own unsteady torchlight, first sees things only as they are presented in that light, and secondly, where it does not know, constructs by imagination, by uncertain inference, by others of its aids and makeshifts things which it readily takes for truth. Shadow projections, cloud edifices, unreal prolongations, deceptive anticipations, possibilities and probabilities which do duty for certitudes. Do duty for certitudes. The intuitive mind constructs nothing in this artificial fashion, but makes itself a receiver of light and allows the truth to manifest in it and organize its own constructions. Our mind is an observer of actuals, an inventor or discoverer of possibilities, but not a seer of the occult imperatives that necessitate the movements and forms of a creation. So we see that we have to rise above the mind to enter these worlds of spiritual consciousness. And I've said this before, but I'll share it again. These worlds begin with the higher mind, and then rise to the illumined mind, and then rise to the intuitive mind, and then to the overmind, and finally to the supermind. The human mind is an instrument not of truth, but of ignorance and error. A will, capital W, expressive of soul's deity. A strength, not forced to stumble by its speed. And now we go to page 52. A joy that drags not sorrow as its shade. For these she yearns and feels them destined hers. Heaven's privilege she claims as her own right. Just is her claim, the all-witnessing gods approve. Clear in a greater light than reason owns. Our intuitions are its title deeds. Our souls accept what our blind thoughts refuse. Earth's winged chimeras are truth steeds in heaven. What a line, huh? Chimera, of course, is a mythological creature, represented usually with a lion's head and a goat's body and a serpent's tail. Now he capitalizes truth, and this is so important that I must share it with you. First of all, in the foundations of Indian culture, Sri Aurobindo tells us, science started on the assumption that the ultimate truth must be physical and objective. And the objective ultimate, or even less than that, would explain all subjective phenomena. Yoga proceeds on the opposite view, that the ultimate truth is spiritual and subjective. And it is in that ultimate light that we must view objective phenomena. So Sri Aurobindo tells us that all yoga is subjective. Science proceeded first with the senses. Everything we could see, feel, touch, hear, all of those things would tell us exactly what something was. But the senses are very limited, as our intellect is also. In the human cycle, he says, truth is the secret of life and power. And what does the mother say? She says, the truth is something living, moving, expressing itself at each second. And it is one way of approaching the Supreme. Again, she says, the truth is not linear, but global. It is not successive, but simultaneous. Therefore, it cannot be expressed in words. It has to be lived. And this is the challenge to us. Lastly, she says, truth is a difficult and strenuous conquest. One must be a real warrior to make this conquest. A warrior who fears nothing, neither enemies nor death. For with or against everybody, with or without a body, the struggle continues and will end by victory. Of course, we know that the body is just a shell that we have taken for our progress in the limited years we are given on earth. When the body leaves, everything that is non-essential passes away. Only those experiences and realizations which have touched our inner being, which Sri Aurobindo has named the psychic being, go with us into this place of rest. And when Sri Aurobindo was asked, how long do we stay in that place of rest? He said, generally, but not always, it's only 2 years before we take another birth. So you can imagine that being here now, how many hundreds or thousands of births you have already had to be here. And for me, and for all of us who have heard the call. To be here is the greatest blessing we could have. The opportunity to make a progress when the supermental is on earth. We should be grateful and humble that we have been able to take birth at this time. Now he says, the impossible, God's sign of things to be. Now that's a very interesting line. The impossible is just God's sign of things to be. Nothing is impossible for us. Nothing at all. He says somewhere, the impossible is tomorrow's possibles. But few can look beyond the present state or overleap this matted hedge of sense. Because we live in the senses. We live in duality. And in the divine and spiritual dimensions, there is no duality. We feel hot and cold, good and bad, hate and love. All of these things, we could go on, but they do not exist in the higher planes of consciousness. But few can look beyond the present state or overleap this matted hedge of sense. All that transpires on earth and beyond are parts of an illimitable plan the one keeps in his heart and knows alone. And then these powerful lines. Our outward happenings have their seed within. Think about that for a moment. Our outward happenings, whatever happens, someone meets us with anger, someone meets us and says, I don't believe this, I doubt this. Someone meets us with falsehood, hate. Our outward happenings have their seed within. And even this random fate that imitates chance, this mass of unintelligible results, are the dumb graph of truths that work unseen. The laws of the unknown create the known. Sri Aurobindo says a few interesting things about chance. Chance is not in this universe. The idea of illusion is itself an illusion. There was never illusion yet in the human mind that was not the concealing shape and disfigurement of a truth. What we call chance is a play of the possibilities of the infinite. This mass of unintelligible results are the dumb graph of truths that work unseen. We don't feel these truths working except occasionally. Maybe in sleep we have a vision of something beautiful. Maybe we meet a person who is all love and all light, and we see in that person something that we would like to emulate. And the dumb graph of truths that work unseen. The laws of the unknown create the known. Now, we have laws on earth, laws of morality. Thou shalt not lie, thou shalt not kill, etc., etc. When we rise into the spiritual dimensions, those laws change. There are no more laws of morality, or, as they say, the 10 Commandments. The events that shape the appearance of our lives are a cipher of subliminal quiverings. A cipher is a code, like a secret writing. Subliminal, there's a lot to say. Sri Aurobindo has used this word profusely in the Integral Yoga. So I have to quote some things. First, from the Life Divine. The real subconscious is another diminished consciousness, close to the inconscient. The subliminal is a consciousness larger than our surface existence. But both belong to the inner realm of our being, of which our surface is unaware. So both are jumbled together in our common conception and parlance. Subliminal is a general term used for all parts of the being, which are not on the waking surface. Subconscient is very often used in the same sense by European psychologists, because they do not know the difference. But when I use the word, I mean always what is below the ordinary physical consciousness, not what is behind it, the inner, mental, vital, physical. The psychic are not subconscious in this sense, but they can be spoken of as subliminal. I encourage you to read more of Sri Aurobindo. Every week I have a session with Ranganathan on the Life Divine in Pondicherry. And right now we are in Sri Aurobindo's defining ignorance. What is ignorance exactly? Everyone is welcome. And it's also on our website, Mother and Sri Aurobindo YouTube. So we continue for just 5 minutes more. Which rarely we surprise or vaguely feel, are an outcome of suppressed realities that hardly rise into material day. They are born from the Spirit's sun of hidden powers, digging a tunnel through emergency. Oh my goodness. These suppressed realities, these things that we rarely surprise or vaguely feel, and things that hardly rise into material day, they are born from the Spirit's sun of hidden powers, digging a tunnel through emergency. But who shall pierce into the cryptic gulf and learn what deep necessity of the soul determined casual deed and consequence. The things that we have to go through in life, the challenges that we have to meet every day. And we think so often of our next meal, or what movie shall I look at, or maybe let's get an ice cream. And learn what deep necessity of the soul determined casual deed and consequence. And then he says, absorbed in a routine of daily acts, just what I was saying. Our eyes are fixed on an external scene. We hear the crash of the wheels of circumstance and wonder at the hidden cause of things. Now, this wheel, of circumstance, Sri Aurobindo uses this wheel very often. He calls it the wheel of God, the wheels of doom, the wheels of life, the wheels of worship. And in the black community, they have a hymn that Ezekiel saw the wheel way up in the middle of the sky. The great wheel run by the grace of God, the little wheel run by the hand of man. The surface mentality, the surface mental individuality is, in consequence, always egocentric. Even its altruism is an enlargement of its ego. Well, we could speak about the ego for hours. Sri Aurobindo, in one of his very pithy statements, says, ego was the helper. Ego is the bar. Ego was the helper. Why? It helped to form us. You as a man, you as a lady, someone old, someone young, it helped to form them. But when ego becomes the bar, it's holding us back. Because we see everything in terms of ourself. We know that everything we think is right. We know that everything we do is proper, which we really do not know. So, Sri Aurobindo says in the Synthesis of Yoga, as long as we live in the ignorant seeming, we are the ego and are subject to the modes of nature, enslaved to appearances. Oh, this is me. I am Narad. Oh, yeah, I'm old. Okay. Bound to the dualities. Oh, good, bad, etc., as I've said before. Tossed between good and evil, sin and virtue, grief and joy, pain and pleasure, good, fortune and ill fortune, success and failure. We follow helplessly the iron or guilt and iron round of the wheel of Maya. Well, Sri Aurobindo tells us that Maya is not what the West thinks it is. And eternal fate. Maya can be changed. Maya can be changed by the mother. We can offer to her all our faults, all our problems, all our difficulties and challenges. As I told you, those of you who were with me last week, there are only two forms of karma that cannot be changed. One is suicide, and the other is murder. Mother said that one would have to go through 7 additional births to erase that karma. But all other karma can be changed today. Our time is up for today, and we have 15 minutes break. And there are bathrooms there, and there is water, good water, and see you in 15 minutes.